Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update, and we have a quick update on the comics, specifically Team Avatar Tales, the kind of collection of short stories that's going to be coming out in a couple of months. And yeah, we have two preview pages, and more or less this is a preview which is us getting the full story of one of the shorter short stories in the book. This 2-page story by Gene Yang. I know a lot of people, their initial reaction to this was just like, oh cool, that's a cool first 2 pages of a story. But according to Gene Yang on Twitter here, he literally confirms that the story that we get in this preview is just a 2-page story. At least that's the way I interpret this tweet. Because everyone's non-flavor bender, of course, means Sokka. 2-pager, I assume that means them saying that it's only a 2-page story. And he links this article over here, which is the preview. So these 2 preview pages we're about to get into are one of the stories. And we'll get into it, but of course, we have all the people who are involved. There's a lot of different people involved here. Some new names I think come up with this. Kiki Hughes. I don't think we've heard that before. Sarah Duval. Johan Matt. I don't think we knew before that she was involved. But anyway, this confirms a couple of I suppose new people being involved in all of this. They give us the basic, punk and farmer thing. We knew that was one of the stories. Hair raising problem, we knew that was one of them. Reflect on what it means to save the world. Yeah. This is actually the first time they officially confirm by name that these 3 individual stories are going to be in the book. They said it would collect the free comics, and I think the creators that we had more or less confirmed that 2 of them were included. But now that they mentioned them all by name, it's interesting to see that they confirm all of them. But yeah, and then the new thing, which is what this news article is about. Luen Yang, longtime Avatar writer, draws an Avatar story for the first time. And let's talk about these 2 pages for this Sokka story. It's Gene Yang on art this time. And I don't mind the style, it's different, that's part of this book. Every single art style in this book is probably not going to suit everyone, but we're going to get to see a lot of different artists, have their take on a story here. And this is just a 2-page story. So let's get into this. Oh, I know Sokka and his dumb jokes. This is kind of Sokka narrating basically himself, as they more or less cover some things that the group sort of gets up to. It's said after the series, I think, very clearly, and it's basically just that, oh look, from the visuals here, they capture the pirate captain from that episode early in book 1. So it's an interesting continuity theme that they have another encounter with him, but this time they end up capturing him. So Sokka's narration is, oh I know, Sokka and his dumb joke. Sokka who lost his girlfriend to the moon. Sokka who can't even bend paper except with his mitts. But at the risk of blowing my own horn, who rescued Suki from the prison at Boiling Rock? Who defeated the wolf spirit? That's a reference to The Search. Well, sort of. Lots of battles to fight, lots of strategy to craft. It's a busy life. And then we get this a little bit at the end. But then night comes. The air is still, the water is placid, the fire banked, the earth dense and unyielding. No one is combining his soul with the spirit, Aang. No one is reincarnating, Avatar. Or I suppose that's Yue actually. No one's kidnapped. That obviously refers to a couple of characters, but I think the idea Suki. Everything sleeps. Even Toph's eyes close, making her constant darkness that much darker. Everyone vulnerable, barefoot, and drowsy. This is me at my best when people I love or revere, or both, need me, whether they know it or not. I almost never sleep. There's too much to do and only I can do it. It's interesting. I don't have too much to say about this. I think it's a fairly disappointing story, because I think even with 2 pages, oh, it's only a 2-page story, what were they meant to do? I think they could have done more than this, because what's the takeaway from this story? That, okay, at one point they capture the captain. That's a little tiny continuity note that's interesting, but doesn't really mean all that much. And then it's just Sokka doesn't sleep that much because he looks over everyone while they sleep. He kind of stands guard most of the time while they sleep. And that's something only he can do. It's just is this meant to be a character statement about Sokka? Because it doesn't really work that well. It doesn't really feel meaningful And I get there's a nice kind of core to it, but it's very, very inconsequential. And this as the preview, the first like preview pages coming out of this book, I don't think is the best way to sell this book. I think you probably should have previewed one of the more meaningful stories, even if you had to only like show like a page or two from a longer story, as opposed to doing like this, which I feel would have been like a fun little extra by the time the book actually comes out, but the meat of the book is going to be the bigger stories. This, I don't know if this is going to sell people on the book. I think this actually could perhaps have the reverse effect of potentially turning people off if this is the quality of story we're going to be getting. This very inconsequential stuff that is like, oh, big character reveal about Sokka. He watches over everyone. Okay, he has insomnia. I almost never sleep. Like, that's healthy, Sokka. But it also is kind of like continuity. Like, Sokka. Well, Sokka's been shown a few times to be like, you know, like he's asleep. You know, don't wake me up. I think at least in 1 or 2 episodes they mentioned that, him liking his sleep, and then they kind of go against it here to create a really weird sense of, I suppose, emotional, like, to give something else to Sokka. It doesn't really work for me. I don't think it's bad, but it's like, is anyone going to reference this story ever again? Ever again? Like, I really don't think so. It's cool that Jean Yang got to do 2 pages of art, and it seems like, you know, this is, who's it, Ron Kurtge, his kind of writing on this. I kind of like the art to a degree, not so sure about the writing here. And that's where I'm kind of like, did Jean Yang assist in the writing of this at all, or what? Because it doesn't feel amazing. Like, Sokka, who can't even bend paper except with his mitts, is just kind of like, what? And it just feels very random. You know, like he's kind of saying like, oh look, here's all these things that I can't do, but look, this is something I did do, and this is what I can do. I get it's playing off the idea that Sokka to a degree feels like he's like the weakest member of the team, and this is him kind of like telling us this kind of new unique thing that he has, but it's not great. So, you know, I accept that this book is going to have a couple of these, you know, fairly short stories that aren't going to be monumentous or impactful on the characters all that much. They're just meant to be fun little stories, but I think I expect more than this, because this feels like they tried to copy, like, I think The Lost Adventures a little too accurately, where that book was like a collection of primarily, you know, short stories from the like old Nickelodeon magazines, and then some news stories. But the news stories were all kind of, I suppose, more impactful, and then the collected stories were the ones where they varied in page count, and you had your bee cams, like, you know, 2-3 page stories where it's just Aang dealing with some bees. I don't think you need to tell more of those stories. Why couldn't this book kind of just be, you know, even if you had to do much less short stories in the book, but more impactful ones? To me, as I said earlier on, I almost feel that this does a little more harm than good if they're really hyping this up as like a preview for this book. I feel like they needed to tease some of the bigger stories, like the reasons to buy this book, a bit more, and not emphasize the smaller stories that aren't really going to get discussed all that much. But that's just my thoughts. I assume some people will really like this story, but to me, like, in terms of it being like hilarious and heartwarming, I don't think this story was really either. I think this story kind of was completely, in a way, unnecessary. So far it's just kind of like, okay, I'm happy that Rebound, Shells and Sisters are going to be collected in a book that anyone can buy. That's something I'm very happy about. Even if all of the other stories are not particularly good, at least we have these 3 which are solid, and then anything else is a bonus. But I hope we get more stuff like these, like some of the better stories from The Lost Adventures, and less like what we have here, less like Be Calm and some of those weaker stories from The Lost Adventures. Yeah, we're still a couple of months away from this. I think it's August, I think it's like late August for like comic book stores. It says here, you know, like September, early September, or I think that actually might be the date. There's a lot of stuff happening. I think it's like Turf Wars Part 3 is delayed until August, and then yeah, this comes out in early September, September 5th here, and then it's I think October for Imbalance Part 1, which if we get a preview for this, I can see us potentially getting a preview for Imbalance in the next month or so. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this piece of news, these preview pages for Team Avatar Tales. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this story with Sokka. Do you, I suppose, get more of what this book was going for? Do you find it has more impact than I did? Because I almost feel like I'm missing the mark, missing the point on like what this story is trying to tell. It's either it doesn't have a point really, and it is not that great, or I completely missed what it was trying to do. But what are your thoughts on it? But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.